The discovery of that land of ice was the main factor and foundation for the establishment of NASA. And when the reality of Antarctica was revealed to its neighboring countries in addition to the great powers, the flames of conflict began to be generated over it with a strong warning of the possibility of a new global collision. An undeclared agreement emerged calling on the neighboring member countries to conclude a treaty that requires each country to share the lands of Antarctica, in addition to Britain and America managing the lands in general. That treaty was announced among 12 countries a few months after the establishment of NASA in 1958, and today it extended to 21 countries around the world to become the largest international treaty in history. Anyone who is ignorant of the reality of that treaty hasn't and won't know why all this misinformation is taking place today. In 1960, NASA began following in the footsteps of its parent agency NACA in developing aircraft that could fly at high altitudes. And that was its first mission, to study Earth and discover the lands of Antarctica. In the mid-60s, NASA was entrusted with developing the giant Saturn V rockets, and of course, this task was given to Wernher Braun. The team that was with Braun went on to develop the Mercury Redstone rocket that carried Alan Shepard, the first American to ascend to the upper layers of sky in 1961. But the team's efforts failed miserably, and as a result, US President John Kennedy announced that America was about to send men to the moon. However, after that he made statements that everyone knows, and his life was the price. After this announcement, the Soviet Union disclosed banned documents dating back to the 40s of the 20th century, but not publicly and under the guise of anonymous leaks, just as it's happening now. These documents caused a great controversy within the government, in which reports of high-flying aircraft flights above the Earth's surface were revealed. It was stated in those reports that the true shape of Earth is unknown, and other documents revealed the story of the creation of the semi-Orca vehicle of the model 8K-71 in 1959, which was announced at the time to be in order to ascend to the moon. However, the document indicated that it was in order to study and show the true shape of the Earth, and it was explicitly mentioned in the document that through studying the celestial dome and the refraction of light, it was found that Earth has a flat shape. However, the shocking thing about that document was that it was based on an American study in 1953 during atmospheric research, in which it was stated that the atmosphere is flat above a flat land. And then dozens of secret reports revealed by the Soviet Union followed between 1961 and 1975. The most prominent of which is a document by NASA in partnership with the Soviet agency in 1971, in which NASA mentioned the final report of the study of Earth, in which the Nazi scientist Wernher Braun helped, thanks to the planes and missiles that he developed. This report contained several main points in which an item that the world today considers a fantasy was mentioned. NASA publicly stated in it that Earth is flat and doesn't rotate. After those events, an agreement was reached between America and the Soviet Union on a secret alliance to share all information between them and not to reveal any of it, except within one framework that directs attention outside the reality of Antarctica and the true shape of Earth. So it was necessary for something that shuts mouths and blinds eyes, something like magic that is difficult to resist or even deny, and which will be the biggest deception in human history after the deception of Earth and global warming. It's the ascent to the moon and the Apollo 11 mission.
2, 1, 0.
On July 20, 1969, specifically at 2017 UTC, the cinematic movie was declared a success in theaters, which was called Landing on the Moon. We weren't the ones who called that trip this name, but it was an elite group of scientists from America and the Soviet Union. The show began with the launch of Apollo 11 via Saturn V rocket from Kennedy Space Center, Florida on July 16. The heroes of the story were Neil Armstrong, who played the role of the first man to walk on the moon, Michael Collins, and finally Edwin Aldrin. The title of that movie was Apollo 11 and the Moon Landing, directed and produced by NASA. But the surprise that few people know is that this interesting movie was written by the Soviet Union, and we'll prove that shortly. Yuri Mukhin, Russian researcher and author of Anti-Apollo book, mentioned the US deception about moonlight, in which he denied the possibility of a moon landing entirely, and he accused the US government of wasting taxpayer money on space programs. He also revealed important documents in his book showing that the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, in cooperation with Soviet scientists, are the ones who drew the fake landing to NASA. David Percy, in collaboration with author Mary Bennett, wrote a book called Dark Moon, Apollo and the Whistleblowers. He also co-directed the famous documentary What Happened on the Moon, revealing that the mistakes in NASA's images coming from the moon were very clear. He said that there are clear evidence that there are people from within NASA who did this deliberately to reveal the hoax of going to the moon by adding naive mistakes to that trip. By using color saturation of the image of Earth visible from the surface of the moon shows that it's a fake image that was superimposed on a black background. Also, it was intentionally not to include any stars in the image because astronomers will be able to use them to determine whether the image was taken from Earth or the moon, and thus the game will be exposed easily. It's known that space, according to their claim, is without air, so how did the American flag flutter on the surface of the moon? And NASA claims that no human being can survive the radioactivity of space, even in protective suits, due to exposure of the Van Allen belt. Then how did the astronauts survive, using suits made of aluminum? And most of all, when the so-called cockpit carrying the astronauts landed on Earth, the Soviet Union captured and photographed it, where the pictures revealed that it was a piece of solid iron without doors or astronauts, but it was soon handed over to the Americans and the matter was kept secret. After the end of this cinematic movie, a group of American and Soviet scientists officially admitted the lie of the moon landing and presented approximately 137 scientific evidence of the falsification of the flight. The matter was kept secret until 1976, when a book called We Never Went to the Moon by the American writer Bill Kaysing was published. The book included a large number of facts that proved the invalidity of that alleged trip. However, the unexpected thing is that in 2017, professor and scientist David Gelernter confirmed in a scientific dialogue that America didn't go to the moon. He said, "How can we manage to organize a US crewed orbital Mars mission by the mid-2030s when we never went to the moon?" He also added that Mission Apollo is the biggest fraud in the history of mankind and is even more stupid than the concept of global warming. Especially since NASA admitted in 2012 that they didn't know how to protect the spacecraft from the radiation of the Van Allen belt. So how did they do that in '69? The simple answer is that that trip never happened. And when NASA was asked why not make a new trip to the moon, the clear answer was because we no longer have that technology. After this false trip, most people believed in the sphericity of Earth, the concept of space, and the greatness of the sun. And how not, as the trip was named after Apollo, which is a Greek word meaning God of the Sun. The Greek paganism glorified the sun and despised the earth, and what a few people know is that the Greeks were the first to claim that Earth was spherical. And in the same way as ancient Greek paganism, NASA applied the direct events and goals of the moon trip. People believe that this lie is in order to prove technical superiority over the Soviets. And this is really funny talk, as both of them are partners in the matter and the Soviets are the ones who planned to fake the moon trip. So the first and direct goal is to prove the hypothesis that Earth is spherical and to challenge the documents that revealed the truth. And finally, to hide the reality of Antarctica and the lands beyond.